Wow, that was amazing. You know, and look at what happened to us the past 2 years. Almost this time 2 years ago, close to it. You know, the wolf comes out, you know, and what his name is so appropriate, right?
Yep.
And how about the Lieutenant Governor? Fetterman put you in chains? I mean, it's kind of chilling. And that old wolf is a fox, that's for sure. You know, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and now some people are still living in fear 2 years later. Mm-hmm. And really use your brain. You know, driving up on the highway, I know you guys had this happen to you. Someone goes by you and you see a young man or woman in the car alone with a mask on.
Yesterday I saw it.
Yeah, same here. Windows up. Yeah, Tucker Carlson said 3 nights ago that's a sign of mental illness. I agree. It's really hard because I look over and you've got to be kidding me. And I start judging them, you know. Then you want to start beeping your horn, roll your window down, you know. And they finally do like, it's okay, it's your own air. Really, you're a hazard out there. You need oxygen to the brain, clearly. But you know, and that I guess the thing that really shocked me so much was how many people were willing to be complicit with this whole thing. It's one thing if they want to have the jab. It's one thing if they want to, wear a mask. But then bully other people, especially the children. You know, Democrat Party, anytime it's election time, it's the children. Yeah, okay, what about abortion? Yeah, clump of flesh, clump of tissue. No, it's not. That's a baby. That's science, and we're being lied to. And what about the children in school? Bullying them, giving them despair, taking away their joy and freedom. And especially, you saw me with that hearing in August, under oath, our acting Secretary of Health, Bean, who came in after Levine. Not much better than Levine, I gotta be honest. Anyone miss Levine? No? Are you sure? Come on, man. Leave it up to follow the science, Levine. Remember that? Follow the science, like after you, please. I'm right behind you there. What they got away with, You remember back in the day, 2 years ago, when you could go into a restaurant, in the lobby, you had a mask on, and you better have that mask on your way to that chair, because if you don't, COVID's going to get you. And, I pictured COVID on the shelf there watching. There's Doug, dang it. Him and Rebby put the mask on. But I'll wait for him, because when he goes to the bathroom, he's going down. I'm like, yeah, but follow the science there. Magically you put a plate of food in front of you and you're good, no problem. COVID will pass over you. It's like some miracle from God. No, that's not from God, that's man-made. And then you think about that here. Remember drinking establishments? You want to go out for a cold beer or something? You can only have food and not die from COVID if you can only have a beer only with food. Otherwise you're dead, right? And Tom Wolfe came up with a deal with COVID. You could drink until 10 o'clock as long as you had food with it. But after 10, you're dead even with food. Remember that? I know you guys remember that. And then I was surprised a few weeks later, remember he came out and said, okay, Chris, you lived underneath this crap. And a few weeks after that, he said, okay, you could drink till 11, but still with food, but after 11, you're dead even if you have food with it. I'm like, really? And he was playing games. He was killing your business, your dream you worked so hard for. This rich kid who never had to work a day in his life over there down in York County with a silver foot in his mouth. And meanwhile, the rest of us, some of us are deemed non-essential. How dare he? Every single one of you are essential in the eyes of God. That's right. Every last one of you. And that's what Democrats think about us. That party has lost its way years ago. And they've been co-opted by maybe not. I know many of my relatives in the Italian side were Democrats. They got off the boats and they were told that's the party. Just sounds like immigrants today, right? We really have our work cut out for us down the road here. But that, by the way, I have a PhD in history, so you forgot doctor as well. It's okay.
Someday, I just want to learn how to say his name, like Dr. Colonel Senator, just tell me!
I only mentioned that to give her a hard time, it's good. But as a historian, which party would defend the institution of slavery? Democrat Party. What party's members founded the KKK after the Civil War? Democrats. And those are the same Democrat KKK members that were killing Republicans from all races down south. And you saw that Free State of Jones movie, right? That's what happened if you were on the wrong party. What about Jim Crow? Thank you. Segregation. These aren't Republican ideals or upheld by. What about the recently passing away senator from West Virginia named Senator Byrd? He was the Grand Master of the KKK. Could you imagine? And that was, by the way, a role model for Hillary Clinton. She said that, and Joe Biden gave the eulogy at his. Could you imagine a Republican associating with that guy? We'd be crucified.
Absolutely.
They'd burn crosses in our front yard. And just like that, Levine thought it was a good idea to set the sick back in our homes, realizing that was a terrible idea, and then smuggling Levine's own mom out. It's hard to put sentences together without pronouns. I'm finding. But got away with murder, 16,000 dead. This is not hyperbole. The media gave Levine and Wolf a free pass because they like their politics and party. But if we do anything minutely ridiculous as that, we're dead. We're done. Look about Russia with Trump for years and years and years, and all the stuff they accused him of. We saw that came out a day or two ago. The Durham report. Who was colluding? Who issued that statement that infiltrated worse than Watergate, a campaign of a president too? This is unprecedented. The media is silent because they like their party. And so that's what we're dealing with here. The past year has, the past 2 years has really sucked for Rebby and I a lot because every time there's an article, it's another hit piece. Who's this villain I'm reading about? Oh, it's me. Wow, I'm really that bad. I didn't think I was that bad. You have one guy, Pete Buttigieg, how's transportation going for us? But since he has the right politics, he gets a free pass for taking off months on end for paternity leave while our transportation system's collapsing around us.
Yep.
He spent about 2 weeks in the Army. He's like some great war hero in the eyes of the Democrats. But somebody like Teddy, who took 4 bullets for his country in Afghanistan, a real hero. Someone like me, 30 years in the Army, and Rebby there with me, sending me off to war 4 times. They don't care about us. If you've got the wrong politics, they don't give crap about you. So it's time that we stop saddling up with losers on the Republican side. It's insulting for us, Rebby and I, when we're at these forums with the other candidates, and we got to hear these mind-numbing speeches. And the things they say are so empty and hollow. I promise when I'm governor, I will, I pledge, I shall, I'll do this and that. And I'm like, where were you when we needed you the past 2 years? Where were they? And so there's a handful of us in Harrisburg standing up, and I can literally on one hand tell you who they are, who stayed with us steadfastly. It's funny because many of them have since fallen off. They grew weary. They didn't finish their race. This is a marathon. Where were they? And so handful of us with some great citizens like you standing up and running for the school board or fighting for businesses, fighting for medical freedom. And it's not fun being on the wrong side of the media, but it's the right thing to do. And so if they didn't fight for you when you needed them, they ain't going to do nothing as governor. So, so we need to stop, and I love these old tired chestnuts and Republicans. They said the same thing about Trump in some regards, he's too conservative. He can't raise money. What else is there? These old stupid chestnuts. Oh, he can win the primary, but he can't win the general election. That's bull crap. Last night we were in a far corner, Teddy, we were in a far corner of the state with Rebby, and we had, at a paid event, $50 a seat, in not a wealthy area state in the Southwest. It's pretty hard down there. We had 250 people in a small town. It was packed solid. And with that kind of movement in a corner of the state that people overlook, we're going to win both the primary and the general election. There's no doubt about it. So when you hear those tired old dinosaur rhinos, just tell them to shut up. We know better. We're not going to settle for Romneys anymore, right? McCain's. Yeah, Mitt Romney. We all lined up dutifully and supported him, and it didn't get us anything. But we had, as Benjamin Franklin said in 1776, we got to hang together, right? Or we'll hang. So I'm going to hand the mic over to my far better half.
Wait.
Uh-oh.
So he doesn't know this. Sorry. Because we didn't talk. But we're just going to open for a second for anybody that wants to ask a question or say anything about any issue that's on your heart, because he's real, he's not scripted, and if anybody wants to say anything, you just tell me and I'll bring the mic to you. Sorry, Doug. Senator, Doctor, whatever you want me to call you, I'm sorry.
Senator Mastriano.
Yes.
Election security. one of my biggest things. When are we going to get it in Pennsylvania? Do we have it?
So what's the status of the audit?
Or whatever, just the election. Are we going to have a bunch of drop-off ballots that are not accounted for? You know, but we're not going to have the nonsense we had on the last.
We have a lot of hope with the Commonwealth Court, of course, ruled in our favor. That's majority Republican court. It's now been appealed to the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, the same court that rewrote election law. And so it's not going to happen. As far as the audit here, it needed to be with the ballots first. It starts and ends with the ballots. You can go to the machines after that and what have you, but the ballots have to be looked at like I saw in Arizona, which I was working for until the establishment, the swamp, rose up and struck it down. How do we do this, though, with an election that's pretty messed up in Pennsylvania, our system? And last May, in that system that's rigged against us here, we had 2 ballot initiatives, the first 2 that we cared about limiting Governor Wolf's supreme imperial powers. And despite the problems, you came out overwhelmingly and said we want our freedoms back, and we won. And it was rigged against us in every regard. You didn't even know what you're voting on. Remember, we talked in a fireside chat. We're trying to get the word out, tell people, vote. You know, I was a yes, no on that. The first 2 were the important ones, yes and yes. Limit the governor's powers of 3 weeks, and the General Assembly would have to approve that. We came out in numbers and we won. That's the same thing we need to do this November. Let me add something else as well. Virginia, they have a lot of problems as well. And despite the problems, the Republicans came out and, man, 95% of the polls had poll watchers in it. 95%.
Great. Isn't
that incredible? 95%. We need the same thing in Pennsylvania, have eyeballs everywhere. That's number 1. Number 2, we need to have, any attorneys are willing to help us out here as well, forward deployed, not waiting in some room or office, but forward deployed like in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh, keeping an eye on things. So if they stop counting suddenly at 2 o'clock in the morning, as we saw in 2020, these are all facts. And they turn the machines back on and suddenly 570,000 ballots were counted and only 3,290 went to Donald Trump. Nothing to see here. I mean, mathematically, it's impossible. So despite the problems, if we get out like Virginia was so desperate they were about to lose their Second Amendment rights, they're losing their right to free speech, they're being assaulted in the schools, kids were being raped because of this ridiculous confusion on gender. Follow the science, Democrats? Yes. Every cell in your body with your X and Y chromosomes will tell you whether you're male or female. That's facts.
That's right.
Amen. That's facts. And I'm sick and tired of things being blurred. And if we settle for one of these weak fellas, on our side of the aisle for governor, it's going to be just barely holding the line and probably losing a little bit of ground. I'm tired of losing ground, and then when we get somebody in power, we lose. It's like we don't take ground back. We're always on defense. It's time to take back our country fully and walk as free people.
Yeah.
So, Senator Mastriano, I'm here from the Lycoming County Patriots, and I want to say, first of all, thank you for not doing what other politicians do and throwing your opponents under the bus, because a lot of them do that. That's part of their speech, right? They talk about their opponents, how much they're terrible. But if you could, for us, for this group tonight, I was part of the person that got you there in August to our group to speak. Could you just share a little bit for these people? I know you don't want to, but tell them about Jake Corman. Tell them about what happened, because it happened the Friday before you came to see us. That your staff got fired, and we were trying to push for an audit. Some of us, including myself, who are working with Audit the Vote to get a real canvas and really do a forensic audit, not like the kind Mr. Corman's going to go for. Can you just tell this group a little bit about that? And I just want to say tonight, I'm here. I'm ready to count the votes when you're ready for me. All right? Thank you.
And that was absolutely a fantastic event, and it was very encouraging to Remy and I after what happened to us by a fellow Republican. So, of course, I'm going to go fast on this here because it's a lot, but it's all facts. It's facts, it's quantifiable. I'm going to keep my opinion of Jake and everyone else out of it. So the election happens in 2020, and I'm hearing from lots of you, we got some problems, thank you.
I own it.
And then I'm thinking, what do I do? People are like, do something, Doug. We're looking to you to do something. I'm like, one of the most junior senators in the building. What do I do exactly? And I'm waiting for leadership to do something. Leadership, quotation marks. And then Jake goes out on the steps of the Capitol on the Friday after the election with a House leader. And we don't know of any fraud in the election. No, I'm not aware of anything. It seemed to be okay with me. I'm like, okay, I'm on my own here. So then I decide the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, great timing, they held a hearing in Gettysburg, and it blows the lid off of it. And despite what the Democrats and the feckless media says, there was substance in there. There was facts in there. There's a lot of problems, quantifiable problems. They did not disprove any of my witnesses. So they just, baseless claims, the big lie, as a bunch of crap, by the way. A lot of things went wrong, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And I guess I'll be asked that question in D.C. in a few weeks there with that nice subpoena. Teddy wants a subpoena.
I'm just glad I didn't interfere with the night. Sorry.
Okay, so we get back and we go out of session, on the 30th of November. These antiquated rules in the House and Senate. We're out of session for an entire month every 2 years. And so I'm running a resolution. We got to stay in session. We have an emergency right now. We have a crisis constitutionally, and nobody cares. And we're off for a month, and we're sworn back in January. And one of the first things Jake tells us is, okay, hold off on all the voting and the investigations. We're going to have a hearing. We'll have a special committee put together to look into this. And the House is doing it too. The House hearings, by the way, were pretty darn good. And so the hearings take months. Just be patient. Okay, Doug, wait till the report's issued. Now we're in June. And I'm like, we got to do something, period. And so I fly down to Arizona, see their forensic investigation. I'm like, wow, this is the gold standard we need in Pennsylvania. If you got nothing to hide, just crack open the ballots, let's look at them and be done. Prove us wrong. And then you can say, Doug, I told you it was a waste of time, but we know it's not going to be a waste of time. So without the blessing of Jake, I issue subpoenas to 3 counties, including this county here. And I give them 3 weeks to respond. You have to give them time, even though they all want subpoenas. So I issue a letter saying, okay. So first it was a letter saying, hey, I intend to launch an investigation in your voting, forensic investigation, not a review, a forensic scientific investigation. And you have 3 weeks to comply. They all wanted subpoenas. That's fine. I'm about to issue subpoenas, but I have to assemble my committee in Harrisburg for an in-person vote. It's August. People are traveling. I find a date that works, so I can have a quorum. I need at least 6 people in the room with me. We lock a room in. I coordinate with everybody. And then I start getting calls like 48 hours before the vote from committee people. What happened, Doug? I hear the vote's canceled. I set aside time to do this for you. And I'm like, no, it's not canceled. I got a call from Jake telling us it was canceled. I'm like, wow, that's unprofessional. Coward. Okay, opinion back. Slip out. So he behind my back canceled the meeting. Lacked the courage to tell me what concerns he had. The concerns he had were already addressed, by the way. It was just dithering, right? Dithering. Politicians dither. They're cowards. And so I'm like, okay. I worked in NATO for 4 years. I even got the French to cooperate with me. I'm like, I could work with Jake. I put aside, my opinion of him, and let's just get this job done. That's all that matters. We just do an audit. We answer all his questions. We have a big meeting in his office with my chief of staff and with other key players and all his staff. Okay, good to go. And then I lock in another date, and suddenly, as the date approaches, we're about to sunshine it. His staff comes out and said, if you proceed, we're going to fire your staff. Not to his chief of staff, not to me. We're going to fire your staff, and we're going to get rid of your committee. And sure enough, that's what happened. We're pressing on. We weren't stopping. So to stop the audit, the forensic investigation, I was removed as a committee chair. All my Harrisburg staff were removed. And that's the kind of games a career politician. People first.
How many of the staff have you got?
So I had 5 people in Harrisburg in my staff, and I got 2 back. So I'm still not participating in caucus meetings. This is a petty game, unilaterally decided by him, not by the caucus. To give you a feel for what the caucus thinks about him, since when in the history of Pennsylvania Senate has a president pro tem of the Senate been drawn out of his district? When has that ever happened before? He has no seat. So governor or bust because he doesn't have a seat to run for.
Let's bust him.
So he's not going anywhere. So my colleagues, without talking to me, I don't even know how they got away with that. But he's suddenly without a district, and if he decided to run for Senate, which he decided not to, he'd have to take on Chris Dush. So and obviously Dush would beat him hands down. So there was some payback. So 43 years of a Corman dynasty is coming to an end.
Amen.
We deserve better, Pennsylvania. This is where it all began. This nation is free and great because of Pennsylvania. We have a rich history. We need to remember who we are. We've been suppressed and oppressed too long by regulations and fat bureaucrats in Harrisburg. It's time to take our state back. Yes, ma'am.
Senator Mastriano, what would it take for Pennsylvania to have a voters referendum to get rid of voting machines?
Well, I have an easy answer for you, and I could do it. As governor of Pennsylvania, I can decertify all machines just like Tom Wolf did. So it's too easy. That would be the fastest way to get it done. I understand some of your local politicians don't want their machines decertified.
I think it's appropriate, and please don't take this the wrong way. I did reach out to our local politicians, and I did invite them here tonight, and it speaks volumes that they're not here. So you do the math. Amen.
Senator Mastriano, thank you for serving, first of all.
Thank you.
My question is, what are you going to do about the inflation in the minimum wage?
Well, and do keep in mind, most of the inflation is driven by our Treasury printing money. You track with me? In Washington, D.C., they print money, right? Or in Philadelphia, it's federal. And so when they print so much money, of course, it creates inflation. Additionally, costs are driven up by fuel costs. Pennsylvania, okay. A lot of this is on the federal. There's much we can do at the state level, however. You see what a difference a good governor can make. You know it's bad when somebody like me who doesn't like the cold weather thinks South Dakota is a nice alternative, right? I almost choke on those words. It's fine in the summertime, I understand, but not in winter. But in Pennsylvania here, we're the second greatest energy producer of liquefied natural gas. Do you get any benefit for that?
Nope.
Do you see any cost saving when you're filling up your tanks on your house?
Nope.
I don't. We got rid of our tank. I was like, why even bother? There's some other reasons too, but I was like, it's so expensive. And so it costs so much because almost every year Tom Wolf is taxed. We were in coal country last night, right? And they're being shut down. I was talking to one of the coal guys there, and they're like, yep, that plant you drove by is closing next year. This one in 2 years. I'm like, why? Because of the green policies. Tom Wolf, without the blessing or approval from the House or Senate, signed us up for the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, the RGGI we call it. And what it is, it's a version of the Paris Climate Accords, and it punishes energy producing states. Now there's 11 members. They're all non-energy producing. It's all New England and New Jersey. And Pennsylvania, we're the only energy-producing state. So as penance for us, for punishment for us producing, greenhouse gases, we're going to have to pay out from your hard-earned tax dollars $421 million next year. Oh, in this year's budget. Tom Wolf's line. I'm like, where does that money come from? That same budget, $421 million. So instead of fixing roads and bridges and doing any good for us, or just staying in your pocket where it should be in the first place, Tom Wolf is finding another excuse here to take money from you and signing us up for that. And so that drives up your energy costs because, okay, to heat that plant, that factory, that grocery store, the businesses can't suck that cost up. They're going to pass it on to us. And we see groceries going up because of failed policies by Joe Biden, old Sleepy Joe. Could you imagine being cooped up in a basement with that guy? I think Tom Wolf was, though. Remember all my Where is Wolf episodes? 55 episodes. I was sure glad when he showed up 2 Junes ago in Philly, right? And had that burn on his bald head. Revy and I were debating whether it was a Philadelphia or Hawaii burn. But I was glad because I had a milk carton there saying, have you seen this man? It's like I get rid of that milk carton, now he's good. But he came out and it was ridiculous. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, so where was he the entire time? I think he was in the basement with Biden. That would have been a lot of fun. At least it doesn't have any hair for Biden to smell. Neither do I. So, in the end, how can I drive costs down in Pennsylvania, which will help drive inflation down at the state level, is not only reducing regulations across the state. There's 153,000 regulations statewide on you, your businesses, and lives. And so that means an inspector can come down from, our version of the environmental protection. It's called DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection. They can come down and make stuff up. You can't film us. I've had people film them. You can't film us. Yeah, because you're going to say something that's not true. And so I'm going to strip down regulations. In my first year in office, we're going to go underneath 100,000 easily. I'll incentivize it. Anyone with an idea and a regulation that needs to go away gets $1,000. $53,000 later, I'm going to save us millions of dollars across the state here. We're going to streamline, instead of having these inspections when we expand our roads and highways in Pennsylvania, instead of having these like 5-year plans, we're going to suspend a lot of these operations and programs so we can just get stuff laid down and done. It's really not that hard. Look what difference that a good governor of Florida can make, right? But this is why, Doug, with all your foreign experience, international affairs, and the military experience, you'd be great as a federal senator. We need you to take Toomey's seat. I'm a senator right now. I know it's different at the state level, but it's not that different. There's 50 of us in Harrisburg. For me to get anything done, I need 26 of us together on an issue. You need 51 in Washington, D.C. I watched what happened in Florida. I saw what happened in South Dakota and Texas. I'm like, okay, we need somebody that's going to really take our state seriously and fight for the people. Not just talk about it.
My question is, where should we be driving the convoy right now?
Well, we lived 2 years in Canada, and the Canadians is funny. They'll apologize to you, they kind of think like you're looking at them like, oh, sorry. I'm like, wow. And they do have a long fuse. They're very patient as a people, but it's gone bad in Canada when they're leading the way for freedom around the world. They've set example not only in Canada, but the United States, Australia, and New Zealand as well. I'm proud of them.
Our Canadian friends have been talking a lot about Doug being governor here in Pennsylvania, and a lot of them are praying because they said, you know what, if Doug becomes governor in Pennsylvania, he might be able to help us in Canada. So we're praying.
We do have the Pennsylvania National Guard, second largest. No. We'll liberate them. I'm kidding. That's a joke. Liberal communists out there, it's a joke. I love Canada. We're not going to impose anything on them. You think about this here. My vision for Pennsylvania, it really is the beacon of liberty, like the town on the hill, a beacon of light, like what Ronald Reagan talked about. I wanted it to be the place where you could choose how to raise your kids without being imposed upon with CRT and other crap by these communists on the left.
Absolutely.
That's right. Where you get to pick how your kids are educated. Where we take on the school unions here, and you have real school choice. So if you homeschool as Rebbe, like we did, as Rebbe really did, that the money goes to you. We got no benefit. Why did the Amish pay property taxes on schools? They have their own schools. So they're paying for schools twice. Out of pocket for Amish school and for public schools. $19,000 per student average across the state here. $30 billion a year. Tom Wolf wants to throw another $1.3 billion this year on that. So the first $1 billion of that, to put it in perspective, goes to the salaries of superintendents and principals. First $1 billion. How do you sustain that? Are your kids getting $19,000 a year? Are your kids getting a university level education with room and board? No. We've been had. We're the 12th most expensive, 28th quality student. We've been had. If we're going to spend that much money, by God, we better be in the top 10, and we're not. And because of Tom Wolf's abuse of the children, masking up, fear. That I talked about the Secretary of Health, acting Secretary Beam, that came after Levine. You saw that hearing. Secretary Beam, how many children have died, of COVID, in Pennsylvania? Oh, I don't know, Senator. Well, a piece of paper she issued 2 days before said 0. And I said, well, I read 0 in your report. And whatever staff, no, 15. I'm like, okay, that's tragic. Every death, is tragic and awful. Secretary of Education, under oath. How many students do you supervise? How many students are in Pennsylvania? Oh, I don't know, Senator. It's like the Keystone Cops, right? A staffer comes in a few minutes later and texts them or whatever. 1.3 million. It's not true. It's 1.7 according to the NEA. He doesn't even know his basic stats on his job, or Secretary of Beam. So using the math, and I did have somebody verify this because I should not do math in public. Even Teddy's better than I am with that. And it's the population percentage-wise that died from COVID in schools, that we shut the kids down, have them mask up, threatening them with a jab, shut the sports down, have them despair and think about suicide, making them miss out on life, on prom, on sports, on scholarships, making their academics suffer, making them go through the ringer, be bullied by the same teachers 2 years before we're on the anti-bullying campaign bus. That's 0.00008% of the population. More die from accidents, or from the flu, or from the bird flu or swine flu, by the way. So, more die from drug overdose. So we've been had. It's all about control and power. After 2 weeks of flattening curve, it's no longer about containing the virus. It's about controlling you and taking your freedoms away. So that's why I am, proud to have endorsed Teddy Daniels, who is a freedom fighter. He loves his country.
Hey, so I know that you wear the spurs, but I run the show, and I want to introduce Teddy. Okay? Okay.
Well, we just are thankful for each and every one of you. And Doug and I, you know what, we cannot do this without everybody standing with us and behind us and for us. So we just really appreciate, there's so many of you that we talk to, they're stepping up in so many different ways. And believe me, there's enough work for everyone, right? But we can turn our state around. I have great love for the state. All of my grandparents back to the 17 and even some of the side of the family 1600s basically lived their entire lives and died, were born and died in Pennsylvania, except for obviously the ones that immigrated. But so I just have a lot of DNA running around Pennsylvania, and very much have a heart. In fact, you know, when we were living in Germany, God just really began putting on my heart that we needed to get back to Pennsylvania. And being a military wife and moving around for the time that we did, I obviously missed home at times, but I hadn't had such a pressure that we really needed to get back. I began praying very hard, and as I was praying, I was doing a Bible study where it says, did you commit? Is there something you didn't completely commit to the Lord? Now I was praying, but I was praying, I want to go, right? I would want to go. I'm feeling homesick. I miss Pennsylvania. And I'm praying all this, and in this Bible study, so Doug had gotten told basically that he was going to be doing the ROTC program in Pennsylvania, okay? So I was pretty excited, but then I'm looking at that one question, and I'm like, well, I guess really totally I couldn't say I committed it. So I was like, Lord, if you want us, right, to go back to Pennsylvania, and I committed it. And the next day he comes home and says, I'm not doing the ROTC in Pennsylvania. I'm like, what? That seems wrong. Anyway, I was pretty upset. But I will tell you this. So as we began praying, it ended up, because we thought he wasn't getting promoted to colonel, he was a lieutenant colonel at this point, and it ended up that he got promoted to colonel, and then ended up that he got picked up to go for the War College, the master's program there. So we did end up in Carlisle. God just had a little different route for us to go, but all that to say is, I do believe that God has called us in a lot of different ways back to Pennsylvania. I do believe in a lot of ways that Doug and I have been prepared for what we're stepping into. Trust me, we never saw it, right? We're now able to see some of it, but a lot of the difficulties and a lot of the things as we lived out of the country for 12 years of our married lives, and as we've moved all around, we've done 12 moves around both the world and the country, but we have gleaned a lot of information, a lot of tenacity that is not going to allow our state to go down the tube. So we are here to fight for you guys, and thank you for fighting along with us.
Thank you.
So I asked Teddy, because I've obviously screwed up Doug's title. I said, how do you want to be introduced? And he said, the baddest man that walked the face of the earth. But so I didn't know Teddy, and when he was in the January event, I was just standing there, and I heard him say that the GOP gave him like a kind of threat if he was to go to Doug's event, that they were gonna basically kibosh his political career. Hey, come show us your shirts. Come on, we cool. I'm ready for Teddy, and he's Teddy, and he's ready. But when I heard him say without reservation that he was willing to back Colonel Dr. Senator Doug Mastriano. I was just like, you know what, dude? Like, you are on board, and I'm following you, and I just want to give you a warm welcome from Tioga County, and it's my pleasure to introduce you, and I just want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your demeanor and how you conduct yourself. I want to thank you for the lives and being honest with the people and giving us the real truth. So without further ado, here's our future Lieutenant Governor, Teddy Daniels.
Thank you. Guys, first and foremost, okay, when I first met the Colonel, I came home, told my wife, and it was at the first Open PA rally I heard this man speak. And I came home and told my wife, I said, you know what, I was so inspired today. We have a 4-year-old son. Yes, he was 2 or 3 at the time. And I said, honey, I pray this man runs for governor because he is the only one that I trust my son's future to.
Amen.
And sir, I was thinking last night, I found a way to stop COVID throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania. I figured it out. It's wing sauce. Okay? It's not vaccines, because, as the Colonel pointed out, couldn't have a beer by itself, but you could have a beer with chicken wings. So it's got to be the wing sauce that's doing it. That has to be it. That's got to be the wing sauce. So, first and foremost, sir, thank you. Okay? And Reggie as well. You folks are part of our family. I'll tell you this. Guys, in case you haven't noticed, we're in a culture war in our country. And there are 2 people in the state of Pennsylvania that the liberal mainstream media and the left is coming at with a vengeance. And you just heard the first one speak. Okay? Now, why do you think that is?
They're scared.
Why do you think that is? So, obviously, the Colonel has been hit by every major liberal, I don't even call it journalism, I call it activism outlet out there. I've been hit by all of them. And the difference between the Colonel and I, when they come after us, like, they expect folks like the Colonel and I to run and hide. They'd be like, you know what, I can't, like the typical Republicans, I'm not going to stand up because they're going to say bad things about me, they're going to write nasty stories about me, so I'm going to run and hide and I'm going to disappear. The difference is, we lean into it.
Yep.
Okay? We lean into it. So the funny thing is, I was on the phone right before this event. Rolling Stone magazine wrote an amazing article about me the other day, trying to hit me and bring me down. And you know what they did? So, guys, you guys are watching the news. You see what's happening with Russia and Ukraine and everything else. You guys are seeing the, oh boy, it's right on the tip of my tongue, the investigation that's coming out that Hillary, was responsible for... Durham, that's it. The Durham report, okay? You see all this stuff that's breaking. A piece was written about court records involving my divorce 20 years ago. No, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. So, and guys, you know what? I'm not proud of the fact that I'm divorced. But show me one person who has had a divorce that it has gone extremely pleasant. Okay? So, but the funny thing is on that is I responded to that this morning. And apparently I triggered this reporter because he just sent me another email. So when these folks write hit pieces, hit piece journalism or smear journalism, I don't do their job for them. Now, he has been working on this piece for a month. And I found out about it. The night that it gets published, he emails me, hey, can you email me a statement in the next 2 hours because this is going to be published tonight? Well, guy, you've been working on this for a month. Like, you couldn't have reached out a couple weeks ago, at least get the truthful side of the story. So I did send him a statement. I don't think it was one that he appreciated, and it's definitely not one I can repeat in this room. So there were, I believe, in the whole piece, there were the words accused and alleged were used about 20 times. The words charged, convicted, or arrested were used 0 times. Okay? So what they do is they cherry pick, okay, and try to put something together. Now, I'll tell you this. If these folks truly wanted the truth, if they truly wanted to put out a story, they would talk to all sides. They would talk to everybody involved. You know, they would get, guys, I was an investigator, like pretty much my whole adult life. You get both sides, and then you go back and say, well, this person, you know, presented this. What do you have to counter that? Okay? None of that happened. The only reason they do this is to put these pieces out and let their liberal followers unleash on folks like myself and the Colonel to harass us, to threaten us. And you know what, Rebby, God bless you, because I know what you go through, because I know what my wife goes through and what my son goes through. The death threats, the hate mail, okay? Like, guys, we're at war. We're at war. And we need folks that aren't going to back down from pressure. We're not going to back down from it. And I even responded to this reporter, come get some. Go for it. Come get some. So he actually sent me another email tonight. I think he's going to ask me out. I think he's going to ask me out because this guy really likes me. Because he sent me another email tonight saying, I saw your live video today, and, you know, I didn't appreciate that too much. Well, I guess nobody's ever pushed back before. Well, you know what? I push back. And that's what we need to do. So, a little background on me. Guys, I initially started in a congressional campaign. In Northeast Pennsylvania, I live in Wayne County. Over the past 2 years, most of the people who have approached me with issues and problems, they have been statewide issues and problems. They have not been federal issues. Now, granted, Brandon's responsible for a lot of stuff, okay? But it wasn't Brandon who told people that they were unessential. It wasn't Brandon who closed down businesses. And it wasn't Brandon who tried to force a mask on my son to attend preschool. So, I made the decision. I looked at the field for lieutenant governor, was not impressed, and I made the decision to switch gears and jump in the lieutenant governor's race. Because I honestly feel that the colonel, he needs a strong right hand.
Yep.
Okay? He needs a strong right hand to swing back against the establishment, number one, and the Democrats, number two. Okay? I know the pushback that he's received already and that he is going to continue to receive. I know that. It's my job to stand in front and take those bullets and take those arrows so he can govern effectively. I've had folks reach out to me and they're like, Teddy, you're wasting your political capital on running for a lieutenant governor's job. That's like a retirement job. And I said, it used to be that way, not anymore.
That's right.
We are going to get stuff done. Because part of the responsibilities of lieutenant governor, the main one is anything assigned by the governor. Okay? Now, if you noticed, I don't call him Doug. It's Colonel. I'm an enlisted guy. Yep. All right? It's Colonel.
Can you teach me the titles and how
it's Colonel. If the man got promoted one more time, he'd be a brigadier general. Okay? So, when he gives me direction and an order, it's, yes, sir, I'm on it. And it gets done. And I'm not the person who the establishment's going to throw in there to publicly try to undermine who our governor is.
Yep.
Okay? That's important. It's very important. Needs to be unified. So you can tell I'm getting hungry. I just said unified.
Chicken wings!
Yeah, chicken wings.
They just told me we have plenty of food, so.
Oh, dear Lord, okay. It's got to be a unified front moving forward. So, I'm going to give you guys a little background on me. I received a Division I scholarship to college. It was an athletic scholarship. I'll give you a guess. You can rule out gymnastics and diving on what the sport was. But I played football at West Virginia University. I was a starting guard there. We got Mountaineers in here?
My son was born in Clarksburg.
Okay, there you go. So, I played football in Pennsylvania growing up. Guys, my dad was a bricklayer. My mother worked in a textile mill. So, I knew my way out was athletics. Because we all knew I wasn't going to get an academic scholarship. My father told me that at a young age. He goes, get used to being on this job site with me, son. And my mom always said, you know, you keep going the way you're going, you're going to have a job with your name on your shirt for the rest of your life. And I did. 15 years as a cop, a couple years in the military, proudly had a job with my name on my shirt. So, played ball at West Virginia, became a cop after college. In 15 years. Still had that bug, that military bug, and I got to tell you this story. And I'm not gonna bore you, but this is actually kind of funny. I'm 35 years old. I walk into a Marine Corps recruiter. I see, okay, I'm 35. My family was all Marines. I walk into a Marine Corps recruiter. I said, you know what? I want to enlist. He goes, how old are you? I said, I'm 35. He goes, yeah, our cutoff's 27. But try next door. The Army will take you.
Yep, sure will.
So I walk into the Army recruiter's office. There's two sergeants sitting in there. They stand up and they say, hey, how you doing this afternoon, sir? Whose father are you? And I said, no, guys, I want to enlist. They're like, guard, reserves. I said, no, I want to enlist. I want to go active duty. So they said, hey, we actually have a bus heading over in about a half hour to go take the ASVAB test. If you want to hang out, hop on the bus. I hop on the bus. All the kids thought I was the chaperone to the test. I go over there, take the test. My scores were sent back before I got back. I sit down with them, and they said, Teddy, you know what? You can do anything you want to do in the military. You name it. You scored the highest you could score, whatever you want to do. And I said, you know what? I thought about this a lot. I want to go infantry. Now, for you guys who don't know what infantry is, I call it the shoe leather express. You march everywhere with a rifle and a rucksack. And I wanted to go infantry because at this point, the war in Afghanistan and Iraq was raging. And I wanted to deploy. I wanted to go shoot bad guys. That's what I wanted to do. And these recruiters looked at me and they're like, Teddy, you're 35. Like, you do realize what this is, right? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, but I'm leaving a great career to do this. I want it to mean something to me. I don't want to take the easy way out. You know, I could have gone at 35 and taken a desk job or something like that, but I didn't want to do it. I get to Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry, for boot camp. I'm older than my drill sergeants, okay? So I'm 37. Well, I'm stationed in Fort Carson, Colorado. At 37, I find myself in Kunar Province, Afghanistan, which at the time was known as the deadliest place on earth. And I made it out of there. And I nearly lost my life over there. And I'm thankful every day. And it was April 25th, 2012 was the day that I was almost killed. And I celebrate that day every year. This year will be 10 years. That God gave me a second chance at life. Where God said, you know what? I'm going to spare you today. I'm going to spare you. But I want you to go do good things. So, guys, I'm not a perfect man. But I try hard. I love my wife. I love my family. I love this country. And I've been through enough to realize we have to stop letting them push us around.
Yes.
It has to stop. It has to stop. You see the political games that goes on in Harrisburg, and I don't know if you guys know that on Thursday of last week, we just filed a lawsuit against the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court for interfering with the primary election process. We filed that lawsuit, okay? Now, mainstream media was to write a story about my divorce 20 years ago, but they don't want to write about the lawsuit that I filed against the liberal Pennsylvania State Supreme Court for interfering with the election. Now, my question is, why did I have to be the one to file that? Where are our elected officials?
Exactly.
Why is it business as usual, status quo politics in Harrisburg? Why is that? Why do they not stand up? Do they not want to fight? Are they afraid of a fight? Are they worried about re-election? Like, it baffles me because I feel that the Republican Party in Pennsylvania has let us down.
Yep.
They've dropped the ball. They did not stand up for Trump. They didn't do anything to help the man. And now they want to go back to a system as if almost President Trump never existed. Well, President Trump flipped that light switch on, and a lot of people saw the cockroaches scattering. Okay? We saw them scattering when he flipped on that light switch. And there's a lot of cockroaches in politics in the state of Pennsylvania. And they want to act like that light switch never came on. And they want to tell you guys you didn't see what you saw. Okay? You didn't see what you saw. My dad, this is actually kind of funny. My dad was never into politics. Now, this man laid block until he was old enough to start collecting his Social Security. He got cancer and died 3 years later. Never had an opportunity to enjoy life. The man looked and acted like Paul Sr. from American Chopper. For you guys who've seen that show, that was my dad, except his language was about 10 times worse. But he always used to say, these politicians would show up at his job site. They'd have on the brand new work boots, the Carhartt jackets that just came off the shelf at Tractor Supply. Boom.
Yeah.
And they'd come out and be like, hey, I'm for the working man. I'm going to fight for you. And my father would look them up and down. Not a scuff on their boots. Not a tear in their jacket. And hands that when you shook them felt like sticking it into a tub of soft butter. They try so hard to be like us, but in reality, they have the utmost contempt for folks like us. Which is why for the past 42 years, this year being the exception, that they have always endorsed candidates because we know better than the people. We know better than you guys. We're going to pick our candidate and endorse them and push them forward. We don't trust you guys to make a decision. So we're going to make that decision for you. My father told me, he goes, who'd have ever thought a New York real estate developer would be the blue collar hero? Who would have ever thought? Okay? That's where we are. And I'll tell you this right now, he is going to run at 24. He is going to run. But we got to fix 20 and 22. So what happened in 20 does not happen in 24. We got to fix it. Now, who's got questions for me? I know you guys are eating. You're hungry. The food looked incredible. I didn't get to have it yet, but it looked really good. As you can tell, Mom never had to call me twice for dinner. Okay? So I do like a good meal. But anybody have questions for me? Anything? Sir? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, okay. I'm familiar with it.
And I've been fighting the school board since last May when I found out they were using ammonium chloride, quaternary ammonium chloride to clean schools, which is neurotoxic for kids. I did 42 years of medicine and healthcare in Elmira and in Sayre. We are faced with just horrific information that has come out in the past 2 weeks. Vaccinating, and I've said this to the school board to their faces, vaccinating 5 to 11-year-olds with an unknown substance without data is genocide. And
I agree.
It needs to be stopped immediately.
So here's what's happening with this. The response to COVID actually created more problems and more deaths than COVID did.
Yep, I agree.
Okay? My son was supposed to start preschool. My wife went to the school board meeting that night. I had another event to be at, and I got home and I said to her, "How'd the school board meeting go?" And this was before they were going to require mandatory masks in the schools. It was mandatory masks on the bus, but optional in the school. So I said to her, I said, "They really said that?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's what they said." I said, "So all these kids have to put a face diaper on to hop on the bus, then they get to go to school, take the masks off, run around all day with the kids they were just on the bus with, and then put a mask back on and get back on the bus with the same kids that they just ran around school all day with." Trust the science, right? Trust the science. And I said, listen, politicians talk all the time about kitchen table issues. All right, hon, we got to make a decision. Like, you know how I feel, but we make family decisions here. She goes, "We're yanking them." And I said, "What about your job?" She goes, "Well, I'll just cut my hours back." She goes, "I can't put a mask on." Like, my wife is more hardcore than I am. She really is. She is more hardcore than me. She is tougher than me. And I just put some pictures up last week on Facebook of my wife and my son. And people were commenting saying, "Boy, it's great to have a strong woman standing behind you." And I said, I got to make a correction on that. She doesn't stand behind me. She stands next to me. Okay? Because when I go to lean, I lean sideways. And she's my rock that I lean on. So, the comments, every good man has a strong woman behind her. No. My wife's right next to me. Because I'll be honest with you, the hate that we get from the left, I couldn't do this without her. I really couldn't. And you see how the Colonel and Rebbe are. So, the left has tried to destroy the nuclear family. We need to restore the nuclear family. We need to restore it. So, guys, I have talked your ears off enough tonight. It's really cool to go to these events with the Colonel and see so many people here. This is all, guys, I don't go to GOP events. I don't do it because you'll go, you'll talk in front of maybe 8, 10 people, you know, next to 30 other candidates. The Colonel and I don't need to take that route. We don't need to go that route. You know, we throw meet and greets, and how many, like we get 150 to 200 people at a pop at a meet and greet for just me or for just the Colonel or whatever that is. So this is not about an election. This is actually a movement. Okay? This is a movement of the people who are fed up, who are tired, and who want to have their voice back. That's where we are. So folks, I love all of you. Thank you so much for coming out, and it was an honor being invited here tonight. It really was. This was awesome.